Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Runners Roundtable. We're in season 5. It's hot takes, and we're discussing fun topics, in my opinion. And this one is going to be extra fun because I am joined by Amanda Katz. And I so wanted you to do this episode because just the thought of throwing the topic of this episode is going to be myths and superstitions, I think is what I've come to. And I just wanted to throw different things your way and get your reaction to them. So this might just be more of like an Amanda Katz reaction episode than anything
I don't
else.
recall consenting to that, Stephanie. I don't recall.
I think you're gonna love it. I think you're gonna trip out with some of the things that us runners do or that maybe we've seen other runners do. And I just want to just share some thoughts on all of these things. So before I throw the first topic at you, can you reintroduce yourself to all of us here that are listening today?
Well, it is such a pleasure to be back on the podcast. I was last year, I believe, literally this time last year. The March 2nd, I believe, was our last episode together. And so it's fun to have our anniversary. And if you know me, you know how much I love Stephanie and that we live in each other's voice notes. If only you knew, dear listener, we are voice note besties. So I am Amanda. Okay, so I'm Amanda and I'm a full-time fitness professional. I am a group fitness instructor for a brand called Equinox here in New York City. I'm a certified personal trainer and run coach. I'm on the Running Explain Run coaching team. In fact, I am additionally a for Equinox a program creator and talent developer. I work with the curation and creation of our cycling program here at Equinox and mentoring our fitness professionals. It's something that I really love to do, as well as serve as the onset trainer for the New York Times.
That I don't know how you said all of that because I wrote it down. Curation and creation.
I forgot that I had to introduce myself, and normally I have like three little bullet points next to me. And I'm like, well, Amanda, you're just going to say words.
I love it because you didn't even trip up on it. You're like curation and creation. I feel like my Spanish speaking tongue would have just gone bananas with it. It would have been like, ¿Qué? What are you trying to say here? So I just love that you brought that all together. All right. So, like I said, episodes probably gonna feel a little bit different than previous episodes because I'm gonna throw, I think I have one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine,
Hide
10.
your kids, hide your
I have
wife. Okay.
11. I have 11. Okay.
Ay,
So
Dios mío.
we're gonna go back and forth between myths, superstitions. I'm just gonna throw it out and again we'll have a discussion. The first one that I wanted to talk, I have a feeling you're gonna have a lot of thoughts about this one. And it is the myth that we get slower as we age.
Oh my goodness. So this one is a challenging one because there is, of course, some truth to it, but not in the way that you would expect. So I actually had thought about this one because one of my clients had submitted one of these when we put it in our Instagram stories. And I wanted to make sure that I was speaking intelligently about it beyond my own thoughts. So there are actually studies, like a recent study that came out that polled more than a dozen or so studies, with a quantifiable conclusion that only about half of our fitness losses suffered in endurance athletes as they get older is attributable to the passage of time, which is huge for us, right? That literally means that the other half can be attributable to our training and something that we can control. So I think that this is actually a really great finding that I'm so glad that we have the opportunity to talk about on your podcast because I don't hear it spoken about enough in social media. It's just something that people accept. the truth is that we are more in control of this than we think. So after age 25, this is going to go down, right? Our natural quote unquote fitness will decrease for about 10% per decade. And we also see this with like muscle mass, right? And
Yeah.
our muscle mass goes down to 5 to 8% per decade. So it tends to drop a little with more swiftness in our 60s and 70s. But nevertheless, the extent to which we can continue to exercise and engage in fitness as we get older is going to be critical. So my you know my initial thought about it was I'm glad that I was had a, I'm glad that I had a bad feeling that I was going to be wrong when I was reading these studies. And then when I read it, I was like, oh, thank God. Because basically, you're not, as the saying goes, you don't train any less, like, you don't train less because you're aging. You age because you train less.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's also just we get caught up in it. I've been experiencing this myself where caught up in the thought that the way I trained in my 20s is how I should be training in my 40s.
Also true.
And it's not like I just want to even say something. I was recently on a retreat myself, and two of the women there, they smashed, I mean, like demolished PRs that were 22 and 11 years old. So seeing that, I'm like, wait, why am I thinking that because I've entered my 40s? And I feel like we hear it, oh,
Right.
faster as a master, like that kind of terminology is out there. But these two women, it was in a half marathon and a marathon. If you're listening, you know who you are, shout out. But it was so eye-opening because it was just, I mean, can you imagine what it must feel like to have a
Inspiring.
22 year old, like that's how old your PR, and you're going to come in, you're going to do it. And it's all because of that, of what you're saying. It's that it's not your age, but it's how you're training, it's how you're preparing, it's how you're, even for myself recently, rediscovering like how to properly feed myself and make sure I'm getting enough protein so that I have the energy to do the workouts that I need to do, so that I have the resources that I need to recover. Because again, it's like training now looks a lot different. When I was in my 20s, oh my God, I was running 50-mile weeks and I was able to do that. Now, if I try to do a 50-mile week, it's like I'm miserable just because it's just I don't want to spend my time doing that. I'd rather train smarter and not longer, if that
Makes
makes sense.
sense. Makes sense. Makes sense. You're in a different season of your life. And you're also, like you just said, you're adding a major component to your your training, right? Nutrition that maybe was in this period of refeeding your body, it doesn't happen overnight.
Mm-hmm.
And so to you're also training with a new body and a new mindset around how you fuel that body through its training. Um, and I think it's such an inspiring experience for you to have been around those women and to know that like you knew it, but then you're actually witnessing it in front of you. Yeah, no, I'm just getting started. Like my best years are not behind me. They're looking different and they should look different.
Yeah, I love that. My best years aren't behind me. It's the best is relative. And I think
Mm-hmm.
I think when we get caught up in the very hard line of like your age and what it means, it takes away from everything else that you're doing. Because I'm not running as quote unquote fast as I did when I was in my 20s. But let me tell you, I am running in a much more healthy fashion
Mm-hmm.
now. And that to
Mm-hmm.
me is like
That's the PR.
that
That's the
totally,
PR. Yep.
that totally is the PR. Okay, next one. Okay.
Not the
Um,
laugh.
I'm sorry. I do that. I do that all the time. It annoys the crap out of my daughter because she'll try to have a conversation with me and in my head, I'm already
No,
jumping ahead to the next topic and laughing and she's like, "I don't like when you do that. Like, what is it?" So I'm laughing because I just okay, I'm
go
just
with
gonna
me.
say. So I
Yeah.
feel like this is maybe I don't know if we're gonna put it in this myth or superstition category, but just what are your thoughts about drinking out of your shoe after a PR performance? Drinking beer or something out of your shoe?
So I've seen this, and I have a few friends who have done this. I've seen this on their social media. I think that I think that they I think that the spirit around it is beautiful. I think you're celebrating, and you I'm never gonna yuck your yum. Do you? Uh Take the knee, they're called a shoey. I think they're called shoeys. I don't, I'm gonna be honest, I don't have a thought about it because I'm what I know is I'm not gonna be the one. Not gonna be the one getting on one knee after I run a marathon. That's number one. Not getting down on one knee. Uh, Fault. That's one. And two, I'm not drinking out of something my foot was sitting in. I'm not, it's not gonna be me. So um what do you think about, have you ever done a shoey?
No, no. Honestly, so here's the thing, and maybe it's
That's like
just
I think this is superstitions, myths, and also like race day rituals.
yeah,
Like,
okay. So
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
thank you because
yeah.
I do have some questions about rituals. So I'm glad you brought that up. So it's like a
Great.
post race ritual, right? Like some people do this. Here is where I come at it. And yeah, listen, if it's gonna bring you joy, do it.
Yeah.
For me, it's just I know what my shoes have been through in training and like the sweat, and maybe it's just because I'm in Miami, Florida, but my shoes get soggy. Like there are some runs where I'm sweating so much where I can hear like the squishing in my shoe. And those shoes are oftentimes the ones that I wear in a racing
Mm-mm.
environment. So to think of, for me, it's just
No,
that it's I know what that shoe has been through outside of the race. And
no, no.
I just don't even like the way I smell. Like I can smell myself after a run. So just the thought of all my bodily sweat pooling down in my shoe and then so that's where it is for me. I will say that if someone does that next to me, I don't want to look. I think that that might I think that might trigger a certain response in me that I do not want to feel. But yeah, it was just I
No, no, and
no.
people are in the moment, right? So I'm going to give you an example that's unrelated to this, but it makes sense. People are in the moment, and endorphins are running through them, and they have so much to be proud of, and they want it, and this is how they express it, right? I love if you're watching this on YouTube. I'm in a sports bra because I just finished teaching a spin class. I'll have people who are so in the moment after that class, and they will come up to me, and they will try to hug me. And I'm somebody who cannot be hugged by a sweaty body. It's okay, fist pump, let's go wash our hands. That's me, right? So I agree with you in that, like, if it brings you joy, do it. But if I see it or have to like experience it in some way, it's not going to be a safe space for you. It's
Listen, I agree. I
it
agree.
is what it
Okay.
is.
It
All right.
is what it is. All right. What are your thoughts on, and I will admit to this superstition, I will admit to this one, not wearing your race shirt like the one given to you on race day. I do not
Oh,
wear my race
I
shirt
don't
until
either. Okay, so
afterwards. Okay.
no, neither do I. Neither do I. For all right. For whatever I just said, you thought I was all high and mighty. No, I'm not because I don't do this either. I do like I'm not a superstitious person. However, I don't want to be in a position where I don't feel good at my race. and if I have to pull out, this has never happened to me before. I also don't race a lot, to be honest with you, because I don't really like races very much. But if I do, like, I don't want to pull out and then be like let down. And then I have that shirt, and then every time I look at, oh, had I worn this shirt, we just make this up in our minds, guys. Like this, I'm creating this situation that is not real. Um, but I wonder I wonder what the history of not wearing the race shirt before the race or at the race, you know? What is the history behind that?
So I think part of it is, and maybe this is just me, but I think maybe where a lot of people come from is that I don't see the race shirt as a race shirt. I see it as a finisher's shirt. So yes, we
Ah,
get it at the race, but to me, it's almost like I can only really wear the shirt after I've finished the race. And if I wear it beforehand, I'm somehow cursing the race to not be a good one or to have it be maybe more of a challenge than it's supposed to be.
yes.
But I honestly I don't know where it comes from. And that is
Y-
just my brain is very much like, no, that is yes, I got it at the race and expo, but that is a shirt that you wear once you've earned the medal. That's
But
like
let's also
different.
talk about the fact that so many people decide to wear that race day shirt on race day. If you have somebody who loves you out in that field looking to cheer for you,
Oh
and you're
yeah.
like, yeah, I'm the other asshat in the yellow shirt, like every other asshat who got a yellow shirt for that half marathon. What are you doing? You're doing your friends and family a disservice. Be different. Be different. Wear a different shirt.
And it's also so this is kind of like a piggyback on it, right? Where I guess I'll ask it because we often say, I know as a coach, I often
Yeah.
say, do not do anything new on race day. Like, go with your tried and trues. Don't do
Yes.
anything new. And
Yes.
to me, that's a big that race shirts, those race
It's
shirts
new.
it's new. And it's like,
Yeah.
I never run. I mean, most of my race shirts are sleeves, like they have sleeves. I never run in sleeves.
Me
So I'm
neither.
like, I will also never wear one of my race shirts because it's sleeves. Usually the cut is something I don't like it's a style. They're like
Right.
high up. Yeah, like it's not something I would choose to wear at home or while I'm running errands or to bed. Totally fine. So I think there's also that aspect of who are like what you're saying. It's like who are people talking to before they decide their race day outfit, and can someone just share like don't wear this on race day because you're not going to be. I even think of this year where I did the Miami half marathon, and the race shirt, it was a bright color, it was coral, but imagine everybody wearing coral, you're not really going to be able to pick out your person. So people, just don't
Don't do it.
don't
Don't
do
do
it.
it.
Don't do it.
84 years of bad luck if you do it. Yeah.
Okay, another myth, which I know you absolutely love this one, but it's the myth that running will ruin your knees.
Oh my goodness. This one is interesting because I think that a person who says this is well intentioned. Or, okay, it could be one of two things. The person is projecting their own running experience where they had an injury and now they no longer run. And they're blaming running when really they could have been doing other things outside of running to strengthen their body it's one of those projections, if you will. Or there's a person who's like concerned about you getting injured, right? So it's like a well-intended person or somebody who has some healing to do, a little projection. um so I actually, the thing that causes knee pain, what causes knee pain? If you do too much too soon, whether that's speed or 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 building mileage, certain overstriding, for example, an error in your form. Um, Other reasons might be muscle imbalances, deficiencies in your glutes and in your hips, quads, etc. So these are the things that are actually related to a knee injury or knee pain. But what they found in studies was that running may actually be protective against the development of osteoarthritis, that it could and that it can actually make your cartilage stronger. So with all that being said, no, running is not bad for your knees, but it comes with an asterisk.
Yeah, there's right now I'm dealing with knee issues
Mm,
and I thankfully I have a physical therapist that I've been working with. And when I was telling her, I'm like, it hurts. She did the whole diagnosis and she's like, yeah, for you it's a loading problem. And by loading, it means that I started off the year with like, yeah, let's get strong. And I was running, I added spinning, I was doing the elliptical, I added more strength training. So it wasn't the running that was
mm,
screwing me over. It was the fact that
mhm,
I was adding so many new things. And then I was adding new things, but I took away the stretching, the mobility, like the stuff that makes my joints happy. I
mhm,
wasn't doing as much of that. So my physical therapist was like, yeah, she's like, it's loading. It's you're putting too much load on this knee with everything that you're doing, and then you're not giving it what it needs to recover and to feel happy and to feel like supported. So
mhm,
it wasn't the running, it's
mm,
other stuff that I was doing. And it's also even just when we're thinking about and I think about this a lot, particularly with strength training, how important, I mean, with running, it's important, but I feel like with strength training, even more so, your form and how your
yes.
body is moving as you're
Mhm,
moving through the exercises. That
mhm,
to me, and again, that's not running. Like it's not happening when I'm running. It's all this other stuff that I'm doing that I'm not for me personally, it's I'm not balancing what my body needs in order to function properly and recover properly.
yes.
So it's not
Yes.
the running. My
No.
knees have been totally happy this whole time, but I was just like, I'm going deeper into my 40s and I need to do more. And it's like, no, bitch, like you don't need to do more. You actually just, you need to do less and just be intentional with what you are doing. Like for me, it was that. It's
Yes.
the be intentional with what you are doing. And it's not, but yeah. So just want to say just yes to all of that. And also I'm there, people. I'm feeling it. I'm feeling it in my knee. But it's for me, it's not running. It's everything else that I'm doing that just my body does not like it. And it's okay.
But it's
Um,
get it right, and it's going to, and it's not a forever thing. And unfortunately, but fortunately, we, if we're never having these moments, are we ever really learning? Right?
oh,
If we're never in pain, experiencing an injury, a flare up, a bad workout, like even if it's a quote unquote error in that, are we ever really learning? And no, we're not. So, and I've been there. So I get it. I get it. I get
oh
it.
yeah. I try to see anything that's an injury or any kind of aches and pains. For me, those are opportunities to learn where is there a weakness or where is there something that needs to shift that
Mm-hmm.
like I mean it could be something as simple as oh your feet are hurting and cool maybe you need new shoes maybe it's not you don't have to do anything else but get yourself into new shoes. So I find that those when our bodies are communicating with us, there's information there for us to listen. And
Mm-hmm.
again, for me, the listening was Steph, you don't need to do all of that. And also, you need to spend some time with mobility and making
Mm-hmm.
sure that your joints are happy.
Hmm.
and loading them in a different way. Okay. So this one, okay, where do I want to go? Um, okay, I'm going to dive deep. Let's just go deep here. Running as therapy.
If you're watching this, can you hear my eyes rolling? So it's fascinating because I always I running is not therapy. Running is not therapy. I I always share this conversation on my social media, and the conversation in the comments never gets old. And unfortunately enough to have a lot of people who believe and have similar values as me, where they know that there's a role that a therapist and a mental health community has in each of our lives outside of running, outside of exercise. And so I'm in this bubble of informed, both professionals and recreational runners or fitness enthusiasts, right? And then every once in a while, like someone will infiltrate the bubble and they'll be like, well, and I'm like, well, do you is better help for you? I there and there's so running is not therapy. And is it a tool that we have in our toolbox to support our mental health? Yes. Would I go as far as to say it's therapeutic? Um, I'm starting to, as a professional, I used to say that. I'm starting to not want to say it as much because I think that people are using it as they're leaning into it too much as a therapeutic tool. And they're not leaning into other things outside of running when they're feeling well. So, so if you say to me, yes, no, running isn't therapy, but it's therapeutic to me. What else are you doing in your life that is therapeutic that isn't running? And that's what I would want for you to explore, dear listener, dear runner. And if you find yourself having a hard time, like, well, and it's all related to running, get curious. Get curious with yourself and start to engage in things that aren't running. Um, Reading, or have a client who's quilt making, um, going out to dinner with friends once every 2 weeks, putting something on the calendar, I'm joining AMC A-listers so that I can watch up to 4 movies a week and sit on my ass like
I
that.
love that.
I know. And I'm like, I want to go to the theater whenever I want. Like, that sounds great. Sign me up for being an amateur movie critic. So, what are you doing in your life that is feeding you that isn't running?
Yeah, I'm like writing notes down because that's always what I do. And so I used to be in the same camp as you, right? Where it's like I never said running was therapy, but that it has, I feel like it's more like it has therapeutic properties, not that it is therapeutic, it has therapeutic properties. And I say it mostly because when you're running, depending on if you're running by yourself, like for me, oh yeah, running is my therapy. But if I'm running by myself, all I'm doing is circulating my own thoughts and maybe it's going to give me some clarity, but there's no one to challenge my thoughts,
There's
right?
no
Where
feedback. Hmm.
Right. Whereas, in a traditional therapy relationship, there is someone who's listening to you, questioning you, challenging you, helping you see things differently, maybe, or just helping you shift perspective by challenging your current thought process. Whereas for me, yes, running will challenge you to be better. But the question I always have is, does running actually shift who you are in relationship to other people,
That's a
right?
good
Which
point.
is why
Yep.
a lot of us go to therapy is because we don't know how to
Right.
deal with people in our lives, right? So
Right.
yes, running may, and I say this all the time, right? Like running makes me a better person to be around. It makes me have more patience for my children, because if I can wake
Yep.
up at 4 in the morning and run and then come home, I'm ready for it. But it's not like a long lasting change. That running mood is just for that day, that hour, or whatever the
Hmm.
case is. So for me, whenever I hear that running is as therapy, I immediately start to think about, well, what happens when running isn't there?
That's
Right?
right.
What
That's
happens if
right.
you get injured, or what happens if, maybe you're somewhere and you have a really great community of people you run with, but then you move, or that community starts to shift and break apart. And then what? Like, is running still going to be that therapeutic place for you when all these other things have shifted? And if not, then like, to what you're
And
saying,
it's
is
not
can we
an
find
if,
something
it's a
else?
when. It's
Yeah.
a when. It's inevitable. You are going to get sick. You are going to get injured. You are going to face a major life event. And in fact, all those things are not bad. They're blessings.
Yeah.
They're blessings. They're being put in your path to push you to the next level. And you have to be present for those things. And that means stepping back from one piece of your life, running. Um, yeah. And there's also like, as a side note, in case you can't tell from the way that Steph and I are talking, we co-sign anyone and everyone going to therapy.
Oh, absolutely.
Therapy is amazing. There's no
Absolutely.
there's no stigma on this podcast around therapy. Like therapy has changed my life and will continue to.
Oh yeah. Listen, for those who don't know, that's what my educational slash professional training is in mental health therapy, particularly like marriage and family therapy. That was what I thought I was gonna do, and then I didn't do it in other ways. But also, yeah, huge advocate. I mean, I have my therapist. I see her weekly, and I just to have someone else listen who has a different investment in my life. Not the same. It's
Yes.
not like talking to my husband or my kids or my friends that they just, they want me to be happy. And it's not to say that the therapist doesn't want me to be happy, but the therapist is also doesn't have the same investment in what I do to have an opinion that is biased. And I think
That's
that
right.
for me is the biggest part with therapy. And again, like even with running, it's even to what you're saying of these life events are going to happen, but it's also think of the mind, like the everyday things of you have a bad run, you have a bad workout, you
Hmm.
have stuff happens that you can't control when you're running. And to me, it's to say that running is therapy. I feel like your therapeutic relationship with a professional doesn't necessarily have those same ups and downs that running does.
Yes.
So that's kind of, yeah. Okay. Um, where do I want to go? Okay. Let's talk a little bit about luck, and then I'll kind of clump this next category together. So when we're talking about luck, we kind of talked about it a little bit with the race day shirt, but I want to go a little bit deeper into it in terms of I'm going to ask, do you think there is such a thing as lucky numbers on your bib or lucky clothing slash accessories you can wear on race day?
No, we just make this shit up. And runners are just like a different breed of insanity. Just making shit up. Now, okay? So here's where there's actual truth, okay? So I'm not when somebody comes to me and they're like, "Oh, you must be a Virgo Pisces moon, horizontal access, Burger King." I'm like, I don't I don't believe in any of that. Okay, so what I believe in is what I know, what I see, what I experience in like the hundreds. now at this stage of my career with thousands of people I work with, right? So here's what's true for humans. If you believe and feel good in the following, the outfit you're in, the number you believe in, like if your grandmother's birthday is in, on March 9th, and those numbers mean something to you, that is important. That's important. And however you want to express that, whether that's via a bib number or wearing your favorite hot pink t-shirt, I don't know. You should do that. You should do that. Is it going to bring you Eliud Kipchoge style marathon finishing times? Ma'am, we need to have a talk. No, it's not. It's not. You made that shit up. You made that shit up. But will you feel good? Will you feel confident? Will you feel maybe even watched after, depending on like what the numbers signify for you, if it's a loved one or what have you. Those things are really important. Your mindset going into your race, going into your run is really important.
Yeah, it's so I love it because we are bananas. So I will admit, for those people who know me in person, they know that I have an a deep, deep love for spreadsheets. And my deep love for spreadsheets is it's intense. So I have a spreadsheet that's called running. That's all it is. And it has the information from every single race I've ran since 2012. And by information, I want you to know that it is the date of the race, the name of the race, my bib number,
Okay.
my time. Okay, listen, it's something else, something else. So through my own personal data collection, anytime I see a 1 or a 9 or a 4 on my bibs, and that's a lot of numbers, okay? Like this isn't even like no, it's a lot of
Next time,
numbers.
next time he speaks, I'm just gonna be like, anytime I see a one, a two, a three, a four,
It's
we lost her. We
Listen,
lost
it
her.
doesn't make any sense. It makes zero sense, right? But it's to your point of like whenever I see that, I automatically like my confidence goes up. So this
Yeah,
past weekend, um,
yeah.
well, when I ran the Mesa half marathon, my bib number was 19591. And I'm like, it's gonna be a great day. I got two ones and two nines. Like it's gonna be a great day. Now I had a great day. Like I did something in a race that I've never done before. I had negative splits in the race. I've never done that before.
Congratulations.
Yeah, have never
Amazing.
done that. Have never done that before.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Was it the bib number? I don't know,
I'm gonna stop
but
you right there.
but it did put me in a really good mood seeing that because again, like I already like those and seriously, like we're talking about 10 numbers, right? Like 0 through 9. It's not a lot. Like I'm literally telling you that a third of those numbers are numbers that make me feel lucky. It's irrational, totally irrational. And yet it was something that for that it made me feel good. Same thing with the Miami race. There was like a 4 in my bib. And I'm like, all right, it's gonna be a good day. Doesn't make any sense, but what these things do for our mental state, it
Yeah.
can it can do a lot. And it can I feel like I'm someone who's always searching for a sign that things are going to be okay, right? So I
Okay.
find that there is this fine line that I walk
Mm-hmm.
with
Mm-hmm.
all these lucky things of like, is it really luck or am I focusing too much on luck and not enough on I'm just freaking prepared, right? Like
Yes.
nothing else to it. I'm just prepared and I'm ready for it. But am I attributing it to luck? These are the conversations that I have with myself of like, I know this doesn't make any sense. And like it's not the bit I've had great races with bib numbers that don't have those numbers. So it's not even
Right.
that's the
Right. Right. Of
case.
course.
But it's the like the storytelling of race day is can be
Hmm.
really powerful when we have, I guess these are like talismans of like the lucky skirt, the lucky bracelet, the lucky
Right.
underwear, like all those things. For me, it's I wear what's comfortable and what I think looks cute. But then with my bib, I'm like, oh, what's the number? So, each of us has our own thing,
Thing.
vision of what's lucky,
Thing.
of what's
I'm
lucky.
here for it.
Okay.
I'm
Connected
here
to
for it.
that, connected to
Yes.
that. And I don't know, I don't think I've ever had discussions with my athletes to this degree, but have you ever had discussions or heard about people that think that on race day, they need to get dressed in a particular order? Like the left sock needs to go on first and then the right, or the shoe, or like,
Oh, it's so interesting you said that. Because I know that this exists. Like there are people who are like this. And I is it a form, and I'm being sincere. It might be a form of some sort of obsessive compulsive disorder, and I don't say that jokingly. Like it actually might be, and that would make sense that you would do
yeah,
that. If I had to think about like the things that the order in which I get dressed on a day-to-day basis, I think there is like a ritual behind that for me in order to stay on schedule and to be out the door, to go for my run, to teach my first class, what have you. Um, like I think about like how I put on clothing in the morning. I don't think I do. You put on one sock versus the other first?
I don't think I do, but I feel like if I had to guess, it would probably be my left. And it would be simply because I'm stronger on my right. So it's like the stability of all my weight on my right
Right.
while I put my left sock on. I think so, but I don't think I have any particular order that I'm aware of, but I'm going to be aware of it now over the next few days.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
Yeah,
It's very
I don't.
interesting. If that's you, dear listener, reach out to us and let us know. Let us know your why. I'm so curious. And if it works for you and it brings you comfort, okay.
Yeah.
That
Listen,
that's it right there.
it's all about joy, right? Like if that's what's gonna that if that is your joy, lean into that. Speaking of rituals,
Just lean in on the left side first. Okay, go ahead.
so speaking of rituals, what are
Uh-huh.
your thoughts on, because everything about there's so much about running that is very much so ritualized in terms of like your breakfast before you run,
Sure.
your breakfast before you race, the warm up you do before you race.
Right.
So I want to focus on this before time and
Mhm.
ask you, do you believe do you believe a person has set themselves up for doom if they're not able to complete a part of their pre-race, pre-run ritual?
Of course not. Of course not. But do they believe they're set up for doom? That's the question. If you have a coach in your corner, that is the perfect opportunity to take advantage of somebody. Ideally, your coach is able to like give it to you and be like, "You're being a little Looney Tunes. You're gonna be okay. Uh, let's pivot, right?" And if you don't have a coach, you have somebody in your corner to help you pivot. Because if you believe that you are doomed, okay, then you're gonna be doomed. But that's not the reality. You can you can change that reality. There are certain things that we cannot control. We can't control a crack ton actually on race day, right? The amount of people who are packed in with us like sardines if you're at like a world's major marathon in the corral, right?
Mhm.
You can't control like any any sort of weather. You can't control um how sometimes you can try really hard to sleep well the night before and then you can't sleep well. Like there's just so many things that you can control that to give yourself a little permission to be like, but what if this is actually, you know what? I'm going to have a great day regardless of this missing piece of my ritual. I'm going to do the best I can today. What if you reframed your mindset and the conversation before you reach the starting line? And I think that's where you can set yourself up for success.
Yeah, I think back to I don't run with music anymore or any kind of device in my ear, but I
Mm.
do remember when I first started running, it was I couldn't start a run until I had my music on. Like I needed it
Oh,
cued and ready to go. Like that was a big thing. And then there was one Chicago marathon that I did, and ton of people, everybody using up the signals in the sky, and
right.
my music would not play. Like it
Mm.
just would not connect. And at that time, I hadn't learned how to like download a playlist onto my phone and that I could still play it even if they're like, I hadn't learned that. But I will say that caused me so much stress because I remember being in the corral thinking, why the heck isn't this working? How am I going to get
Right.
it to work? I can't start without it. And it was unnecessary stress for me that morning. And also just like, what does it matter? Right. Like, I
Right.
wish I would have had that confidence, I think, in myself of like, okay, this is not going to plan, but it doesn't mean that I have to start off physically, mentally feeling like, oh, this day is cursed because I couldn't get my music to play. And
100%.
that is that's a think what you're saying is that reframe of like, okay, this may not go to plan, but you're still prepared regardless. Like
Yes.
it's still going to happen regardless. So how do we move past this obstacle slash hurdle and just continue moving forward? So,
Mhm.
okay, what are your thoughts on this myth or this thought that a lot of people in female bodies have, that
Mhm.
having your period on race day is a bad thing?
I think that like we can just all agree here in this safe space being the internet that having your period is not our favorite activity. Like, yes, if you're a man listening to this, if the woman in your life or the female in your life who has a period is not bitching every day about what it's like to exist in a female body, well, bless you, because we have our things. And one of the things we have is a period. And I think that, again, what can you do about it? What can you possibly do? Okay, what I know is that my body is trained for this. What I know is that I'm going to work my ass off on race day. What I know is that I'm going to nourish myself and that may mean nourishing myself a bit more, right? But these are all things that I'm going to guess that yeah, you're having your period on race day at some point during your training, whether that was 12 weeks or 20 weeks or, what have you, you had your period. How did you take care of yourself during that time? So, Steph and I were talking offline about nothing new on race day, right? How about this isn't new?
Mm-hmm.
It just happens to be on race day.
Yeah. And there's a lot, which a lot of literature out there that I'm not 100% familiar with, but the what I've read is that if you have your period hormonally, you're more like a man. So technically, it should be a strong day. Now, hormonally is one thing, but then physically in your body while you're
Right, right.
moving is a totally different thing. So I find that the whole period discussion is such an
Yeah.
interesting one. because there's
Hmm.
layers to it. But what you said is true, is if you have a period and you get a period regularly, depending on the distance you're training for, you have experience running with your period before. So perhaps
Yeah.
it's more of a readjusting your goals on race day because you have
Yep.
your period. Maybe that readjustment is, oh yeah, now I need to account for a bathroom break that maybe I normally wouldn't
Yes.
take, but I have to take a bathroom break because I need to change stuff out. So that adjustment of it, but it is what it is. And hopefully if you have your period on race day, you smile a little bit bigger when you cross that finish line because you're a badass. You just
Yes.
ran while you were bleeding, and how amazing is that? So
Period.
okay,
Period. Literally.
last one, and then this one is probably just a quick and easy one, but what are your thoughts on the ritual of checking the weather race week?
My client submitted this one. She's so funny. Um, my, my feelings around it are it's pretty useless. It's a pretty useless thing for you to spiral unnecessarily into oblivion because you see a certain forecast that isn't your perfect forecast. Uh, I've and and I'm guilty of this too. I was able to recover from it pretty quickly. But I ran a marathon this year, and that marathon happened to be sandwiched in between two of the most perfect days in New England. And that day was torrential downpour uh for the 26.2 miles, and it was a rails it was a it was part the Steamtown Marathon has some paved dirt road too. So not great, not great when it rains. And I also have Raynaud's, and I didn't have Raynaud's syndrome where I lose feeling when my feeling in my hands and my toes, and I didn't have the right gloves. I didn't prepare for it because the temperature without rain, I probably would have been fine. But with rain, I was not fine. So leading up to that day, I was unwell. I was every hour I was checking. And then it reached a point where I was like, I want to say it was, the morning before the race. And I was like, I can't change the weather. I deleted the app off the phone. I'm like, just get off. What are you going to do? Tomorrow morning, I'm going to put on a hat, and I'm going to, and the rain, I just ran as hard as I could. Like, what, what am I going to do? I was careful and I ran as hard as I could. And it was the hardest race I've ever done. But if you have to eventually call yourself on your own bullshit, right? So it's like, if you know you can't control the excessive or obsessive checking of something, whatever that thing is, remove it.
Yeah.
Remove it.
Yeah. I check the weather. If I am traveling for a race now, I will check the weather the night before I leave because I need to know how to pack. Other than
Yep.
that, it's like it's really not helpful. And
Nope.
everyone's going to have an opinion on the weather, and I don't need to take someone else's opinions into my
Energy.
system, right? Like I
Nope.
just don't need it. I don't need it. So yeah. Okay, that was it. That was we covered all the ones I wanted to cover. We did it. We did it. Amanda, thank you. I have a couple of final questions for you. And the first one is just, can you remind us where we can connect with you further?
Sure. Sure. You can connect with me on Instagram, Amanda_Katz, Katd with two V's. I am also accessible on my website, amandascatz.com. And you can find my email address on my Instagram if you want to send me an email as well.
Awesome. What are you excited about for 2025 when it comes to who you are becoming as a runner?
Oh, I'm excited to pour. more energy into taking care of my recovery around my runs. I am reaching a point in my career where I am dialing back from a lot of what I do professionally requires a lot of, it's comparable to like an amateur athlete. I am on a bike for several hours a day coaching, and coaching my private clients doesn't require me to do that, but it's all energy, right? So freeing up that space for more rest, not freeing it up to run more, freeing it up for actually more rest, which I know will result in a stronger performance on my runs. And I have some distances that I am going to annihilate this year because of it.
I love that. Just
Straight face.
knock them all down. Just
I'm gonna
knock them all
crush
down.
it. Yep.
All right. Final question is, what are your final words for us today?
My final words are that there is a place for your ritual. There is a place for all the things that you believe in if they provide you with a sense of confidence. But recognize that your faith, your belief without doing the work is dead. You got to do the work. And if the rituals provide a nice little bow on top of that for you, do you.
And with that, we'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.